There we go. Okay, so welcome. Yep, streaming. Why isn't it? Got it. Okay. There we go. Okay, so welcome. Sorry, I'm just looking. The UI changed a little bit, and anyway, welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for January 18th, 2023. So we're in the new year. Does anybody have any announcements or anything that they would like to share before we go to the regular agenda as posted in the issue? If not, okay. Here is the link to the minutes if you want to add yourselves to the attendee list. I'll just do that myself too. And then I will go to the list of things we had on the agenda. So the first one is to get the summit attendee list for follow-on discussions. I haven't done anything on that, so I got nothing to report. Metadata proposal for docs. We had a good discussion on that last week. And
go ahead. Yeah, for the first one, I added a list based on the picture taken by Tony. I have 2 or 3 people which are missing because I don't remember the name. So if you check the issue, I added a comment with stuff. So you can edit with the people missing. I think I also missed some of the people which weren't in the picture. So from memory, I have an almost complete list, I think, but missing, I think, maybe five people.
Okay, that's good. And we can probably map those back to emails if through the collaborator list versus having collected them. Anyway. So that's good.
Yeah, true. I didn't tag them on GitHub to not bother everyone with notification and stuff like that. But I just added the first name.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Okay, no, that's good. Okay, metadata proposal for docs. We had a good discussion last week. I think I don't think there's anything new to report this week.
There is. I think there is some point. Maybe you want to talk about it because you added some comments, so I will let you.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So no, yes. After the meeting, I realized, and I should have brought this up during the meeting. I'm sorry about it, Michael, but. There is a big problem that Richard brought up with regards to backporting, right? And that's very important. It's I'd say essential part of the releases. And if this adds friction, like that process is already like a lot of work for the releasers. And as a releaser myself, I would say it's kind of unacceptable, like to add even more work to our plate to get that in return. So, but I do think there might be ways to work around that extra work, right? Like maybe add some tooling, but maybe make some compromises to it so that the formats are a little bit closer, simpler to be basically ported back to older versions, right? So yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely an important thing to figure out. Hopefully, like I don't think at the same time we can also say, hey, we're just stuck forever. So it's like you said, it's around finding what's a reasonable path that maybe doesn't go as far as we want, or I don't know, like, but hopefully we're not just like, we're stuck with what we're doing forever.
No, yeah, I think we can definitely work around, like, and if needed, like add some more tooling to automate the really, laborious manual parts of the process. But I do think we need to think about it before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like, no, it's a really good point that like, okay, that's a big gotcha that, we'll have to make some decisions up front. Like, do we I think some of the suggestions is like we backport the docs immediately. Or do we like cut it off and say like, okay, well, like for the one in maintenance, we're not going to do any doc updates anymore. We'll have to figure out what exactly it means there. So.
Yeah, I think the main issue for the discussion was really about Node 18, which will be available on LTS stage until 20, or at least maintenance stage until 2025, if I remember correctly. So I think for every other stuff like Node 14 and 16 and 19, it's way closer. So it wasn't really an issue, but 18 was the issue on itself, I think.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what issue, like what version will be ready. I'll be surprised if we're ready for 18, to be honest. But like in some version, we're going to have this problem of like, how far do we need to backport and so forth? And can we cut it off? Like, you know, the releasers probably have the best insight into like how many doc things are going back into say 14 at this point, right? And I don't know.
Yeah.
The plan is, I think, to like come up with tooling that hopefully helps in the transition. So you know, maybe that helps in terms of running it on not just the main branch, but the next major LTS back as well. The other thing that I was hoping is that we could come up with an approach where, like, for some period of time we're using the current stuff, but there's some tooling which converts it to the new stuff. And if we have that, again, that's something where, you know, if that's what we're using for the transition and we've already sort of tested it out, you know, maybe it does make sense to run it on a couple of versions. Anyway, like you said, I think it's back to, yeah, key issue that we need to figure out. I think there's a bunch of issues. So it's good to have that one raised for sure. I think the next step is kind of like to get ready for a presentation to the TSC. I think there's enough different issues, like this is one, but maybe there'll be others we haven't thought of as well that people are going to think are pretty important. So getting a presentation to the TSC to say, here's the proposal, here's what and Overflow has put together a pretty good example directory to see, like, here's what it would be like in terms of people editing the docs in the future, because I think we might get comments on that as well, and put that presentation, you know, put a presentation to the TSC together and see what other feedback in terms of, you know, key things to think about are would be good. Anything else on that one to discuss? No. Okay.
For that one, 165. It was on my part. I started to write a new to update or to create a PR on the good topic for Node itself. Didn't finish it, and it's also linked to the visualization part. Both are linked around it. So I would have it done for next meeting, but not currently. But also, while reviewing the technical priorities, I saw that we wrote on the first iteration that it should be reviewed by the TSC on a 6-month basis.
Right.
Which we didn't do.
Right.
I think. Okay. So just to see if we want to commit to that or if we want to change that.
I think that's like opening an issue that says, hey, we captured this in the TSC. Like, if you want to open that in the TSC repo and add it to the agenda, then in the next meeting I can say, hey, we wrote this down. Do we want to do this? You know, does it make sense still? You know, and that's probably the best way to get the TSC to say, hey, yeah, let's do it. And then I can say, hey, we'll prep for the next one. Or if they say, no, nobody's interested.
Okay, I would do it.
Sounds good. I think, could you, if you've got a branch with some of that on it, if you could share that with me, that would be great. Because I'm just looking, I'm hoping to spend a couple hours this week figuring out, like, have we crossed all the T's on the summit or not? And so I can look at what you got, and that would help me.
Okay. I will share it. I will share the branch with you. I'm not on my computer right now, so.
Yeah, not immediately, but like when you get a chance.
Okay, yeah. I will send you a Slack message with a link. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. The next one, visualization technical parties, that's related, you said, I think.
Yes, exactly. That's related. I will also give you access to that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay, example documentation initiative. I think, Jean, you opened that one, did you?
I did, and also the next one, but I did this one. Basically, I think last time we talked about it was during a summit in Dublin on what we want to put in the documentation and example part. Now that I've seen a new Node.js website, which is developed, there is a category called Learn or something like that, I think, if I remember correctly, which could be good to add some article, let's say article or small demonstration or some example on that. I will try to create a list, which could be interesting. I mean, I think we have quite a lot of stuff. Maybe we can reuse some part on Node API from the repository. Maybe also add something about the new test solution, which is baked in Node.js now. And maybe on the issue, I will try to add a list of ID, and if other people also have some other ID, could be great to just share it. Even, and we can see if we want to take or to link to external article or write them ourselves.
Right.
Okay. We really can.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Oops, I'm just taking that note. I do. Okay, and on the AI18 initiative?
Nothing new.
Okay. Now the next 10 survey, I think that's one where has been some good discussion on questions, right? And
yes, there is quite a lot of discussion about what we really want to include. So I don't know what we want to choose here, basically.
Right. So this was kind of like, I think the goal of this one in theory was like a follow-on from, we did a survey before to say like, hey, are the technical priorities and objectives aligned, right?
Yeah, so the pull request is created. I think it's linked in the issue, but if not, I think it's the only pull request currently open on your repository.
Okay, I got it right here.
Yep. There is some debate and discussion about how precise we want to be and what we really want to include in the survey.
Right, okay. So are there some key questions we should talk about in terms of trying to make progress there?
Could be interesting to discuss about. Let me see. Let me open it. I think there is a few questions about, do we want to be really precise about ESM and CGS module and package manager? There's a two, it's a discussion with Geoffrey, Lucas, and other people, and I think Matteo also.
Okay, so can you give us a little bit of context in terms of the, like, what do you have an idea of what we might change the question to do that?
Yeah, and I think the last three missed comments by Matteo, Jordan, and Geoffrey.
Okay, here, you want me to share
if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, could be interesting. Main part, I think, for this kind of question is like, do we want to be really precise in the question, or do we want to be a bit broader?
Right, so this one is the first one you were talking about, or?
Yes, it's the one with NS, yes. Yep.
Right, so I think that's easily fixed, right?
Oh yeah, most of them could be easily fixed. It's not time consuming, just what do we want to focus on?
I think this one is interesting. like to say what arch you develop on and which one you deploy to would actually be an interesting question.
Yes, but do we want to focus on people on which architectures they deploy or they are working on? Oh, sorry, I think my network is crashing.
I was thinking, like, I think it's an interesting question to ask, like, what is your architectural OS that you are developing in? And then separately, what is the architectural OS in which the applications are deployed?
Okay, we can keep both of them. Yep.
I think because, like, for me, that's quite interesting. If we're going to ask one, actually, it makes sense to ask the other, because, like, I have a sense of, like, lots of people use Windows, Mac for development, but everything is deployed to Linux, or, not everything, but like a large percentage, right? And it would be interesting to see if that actually, matches.
Yep, true.
Okay.
True. But is it okay to have a survey with 30 questions?
Well, that is so I understand that part too. How many do we end up with is the question. These personal questions. So that's.
But I can update everything and we can discuss asynchronously about what question we want to keep. If we want to, maybe there will be multiple questions linked to one key area and we want to do another survey or ask it differently. I don't know.
Right. Yes. I mean, yeah, that's probably a good approach, is like, if you address the question, all the comments, and if we end up and then say, okay, and like, don't remove things this point, and say, okay, now that we have everything that's suggested, is that too big? Which one would we remove if we can remove one, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yes, it sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So yeah, we'll take that back to I'll stop the share, take that back to the okay. Okay, number 110, the create communication channels to the periodicals. So I'm just opening up the issue we opened. I'm thinking there was an interesting discussion in the Node API team meeting where we had an issue which was like, hey, new modules that have been ported to Node API, right? So we had that for 2022, or maybe it even said 2021, and we were like, hey, it's 2023. Maybe we should close this issue. But the interesting thing that came out of that discussion is we actually opened a new issue, which is like news and interesting things on the Node API front for 2023. And I'm wondering if, maybe the approach, that's an interesting approach where, like, each work group, if they're interested, can open up an issue like that. And maybe even we could propose one somewhere for Node Core as well. And like, people can just post in things they think are interesting. And having done that, then, maybe we just point these other, groups to those as, hey, here's interesting news, right? Like I don't, from the discussion on the issue we opened the foundation, I'm not sure when, if ever, the foundation is going to have resources to kind of help drive this. So maybe that kind of a proposal of, hey, if you're a working group, you can add it to this, you can have an issue like this. If you put your issue into this one, we'll just email it to like Node Weekly and some of the other people who might be interested. And if they pick it up, they pick it up. If not, that seems like a fairly low overhead and possible, because I've seen like Node Weekly pick up things that are like, hey, somebody published this thing on Node API, and that might be just a way to make it easier for them to find things like that if they're interested. I don't know what other people think, but that's a thought.
100% seems a good way with a low overhead.
Okay, so maybe that's something I might just open a TSC agenda issue to say, hey, here's the plan, heads up. If anybody has any concerns, let us know. Otherwise, we can open a, hey, what's new on the next 10 front issue? And we've got the Node API one. And then it's not a lot of work to just basically find the contact for a couple of the places we'd mentioned and go ahead that way. Okay, so I'm going to discuss using what's new issues in team work group repos, maybe add one for Node.js 4. Michael will create TSV issue to outline, FYI, and then we start with Node API, and next 10 teams doing it, and forward to the periodical squeeze. Okay, that sounds good to everybody.
Yeah,
I have a thought.
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, sure. I was just, kind of thinking about this while we're talking about it, and kind of an idea came into my head, I guess.
We like ideas.
Yeah. Twitter is kind of a dumpster fire. I mean, more than it ever was now. So I don't even go there anymore. So, but I was wondering about like a Mastodon handle that was just even like Node.js project newsworthy items or something. It's not a great handle, but since it's so, burgeoning the Mastodon space, that's something. It doesn't matter that it doesn't have 800,000 followers. So it could just be something that we could start doing and then start making people aware of it. And it could be another avenue of just pushing up things that are happening. And then people like the weeklies could come aware of it as well, make them aware of it. It's just a thought I had.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting. I guess it's a handle somebody would have to like a little more actively manage, whereas this other one would be like nobody actually has to think about telling them something. It's just strictly if people post news, it shows up, right?
Yeah. And I was wondering about any sort of automation. I don't know about Mastodon's APIs and stuff, but I think the public feed, or I can't remember what it's called, but I just wonder, it's just kind of a thought I had. I think we should go what you described, but I'll keep that in the back of my head for.
I think as an add-on, like forgetting the Twitter dumpster fire, Mastodon, I'd personally like to see more project news getting out there, and maybe some handles. So if what you're suggesting is like a Node.js project news or something, that would, I would think that would be good. I would say we might want to have like a Twitter one and a Mastodon one, just because I don't think it's Twitter's still a thing, and and then if that could then be the channel that like this kind of news goes out to, and we could post news about working group meetings if people were interested in coming, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think Mastodon you're not as limited to, so you could put more text up there to share more info right in the
right.
two. But anyway, yeah, it's just a thought I'd share.
So yeah, I don't know if you like. We'd probably need the okay to use the Node.js name.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
It'd be interesting, like if you're interested in asking the foundation to say, hey, like the project would like Node.js, project news, Mastodon handle, Twitter handle. I think that would be good because, having those, I think would be a useful, for a channel for the project to get project news out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
The whole thing with the Mastodon migration, that is a little bit more tricky. I remember the first few collaborators that got there. We had a small chat about it. I remember Matteo was involved, but is that there is an impact, direct impact on the host. So they were thinking about maybe have the OpenJS Foundation either have its own host or participate, so financially help some of the big hosts there, so that it kind of offsets the impact of running this big account in a specific host, right? So there is this to keep in mind as part of that migration.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, if they do have an LF server or something, then maybe it would just be on that server too, and
I think some of the projects. I think the Python Software Foundation joined one of the big instances. I think is the Fostodon that most of us are there. I think I might be wrong, but I think that I saw the Python Software Foundation joining that one, and then it can be a matter of just trying to offset your presence there, right? Like it can, and then the foundation can work with the admin host to make sure we're providing a fair share of the usage there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have the program committee meeting at the top of the hour, so I can even mention it before we get started there, what's going on with that stuff.
Oh, great.
Sounds good. And then so yeah, that would be good. So I'm just gonna add that in some discussion around I'm gonna say this Mastodon.
But
right?
Joe, given that you might bring that up, there is also the alternative, the OpenJS Foundation decides to have its own host, and then it can, bring all the collaborators to it, which might be an exciting thing to have to, I don't know, just things you might want to discuss in that conversation.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were thinking, but they were, I think maybe like at the LF level, they might do something, but I'll ask, I'll try to get an update on it overall.
Cool.
Okay, and then the last issue on the agenda was Suitable Types mini summit deep dive next steps. And I don't think I've done anything. I haven't looked at that, so I again, as I mentioned, I've probably said a few times, but I want to try and spend a number of hours, hopefully this week, to catch up on stuff like that, figure out some next steps. Okay. Any other issues or topics we should talk about this week?
Let me just say, I opened an issue, we discussed it quickly, and it was an issue when we talked during the Dublin Collaborator Summit about a way to, let's say, have found for collaborators or stuff like that. Let me check. It's an issue I opened. I don't know which one. Where is it? 177.
Okay.
Corporate support and contribution. I just added a way. I will cite a company I don't like doing like every, I don't know if it's months or quarterly or stuff like that. Could it be a way for us to first share knowledge and information, could be linked to security or something like that, while also having some contribution from company using Node.js?
Right. Okay. So you added this right down at the here. Right.
Yes.
Interesting in the sense that the foundation is actually doing like that, but very focused on just security funded by the OSSF.
It could be.
So I mean, but that's what's I'm saying that's what's happening today. It's interesting that like what you propose is an expanded version of that, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't be just about security, but I think it would be something which would interest everyone. And by experience, like people working with Node.js or other technology are aware of this kind of report and what's open and stuff like that. But if you go to big company which are not tech company, if no one is checking that or knowing the initiative about security or the stuff, it just magically happen from people. So I know it was just multiple idea, because it was quite an issue when we discussed about it during the Dublin summit.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand what you're proposing is not security specific. I was just saying the foundation is already doing this, but just in a smaller scope.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like saying, hey, you know, is it possible to expand that scope? I don't know, Joe, do you have any insights, and do you think that people would be receptive to expanding those? Maybe those are very specific because of the OpenSSF funding.
So, sorry, expanding what?
Well, like I guess like, you know, what Jean's proposed here is basically like a node update. One part of would be security fixes, vulnerabilities and stuff. The foundation staff and marketing group are already publishing something kind of monthly, which is the the update on the security front. But it's very security focused, right?
Yeah.
I guess my point is they already are publishing a monthly marketing kind of thing. Would it be? It would make sense, I think, along Jean's suggestion that like expanding that to be like the node update, and have the node update have things like, hey, major minor versions as well as security fixes. And so not getting rid of the current content, but it would be longer then, but have additional things to give it more of a rounded update.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the Project Alpha Omega update is sort of like, I don't know if they would change that. I think that's kind of baked into the sort of whole proposal and process or something. But maybe an additional one, perhaps. My only thought, though, is like that's more work, and I wonder who would do the work. I think it's a great idea. I just don't know, like if somebody was going to do the work, then it'd be like, great, cool. But it seems like it would be a lot of work on a regular basis, ongoing regular work.
Yeah, like that was my question. Do you think the foundation is going to be supportive of doing that?
I think they would like the idea. I don't know if they would be able to do the legwork to pull it all together, to write it, to edit it, all that stuff. That's just my guess based on, people's capacity and what's going on.
Yeah, and I'd have the same impression, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a collaborator said, I'll do the chunk of the work and give you something that just needs to be polished and put together and published, I think they'd be open to that. But I think doing all the other work might be too much of an ask, unfortunately. It's something to think about, though. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
there is somebody that could help with it. You know, I'm trying to think. The weeklies are probably not interested, but you know, I think about Emily Gordon from IBM back in the day. She might have been open to kind of helping with that. Maybe if the marketing committee kind of reforms and we get some folks involved, maybe there'd be a volunteer from there. I'm not sure. Which I can ask about again in the program committee.
Yeah,
before it
sure.
started. You know, at the very least, what's up with the marketing committee? Is that going to be spun up again? You know, that could be an avenue.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, because you're right. If there's a marketing committee, this is something that would seem to fit into their sort of scope, right?
Yeah, I could almost even see like the Node.js project monthly update brought to you by, you know, IBM or Nearform or someone, if
Yeah.
that company helped to just collect
Yep.
it. So that's a possible avenue.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, and then that adds an extra, you know, something that where it might help to get some volunteers to help with it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are sometimes companies that want to help in some way or another. So that's something to just keep in mind. If we hear anyone, that's a way somebody could help without too much difficulty.
But also, even just I think if it's cast in the, hey, can you provide resources to do an update from, and the open up just update from sponsored by X or provided by Y, or like, you know,
yeah,
rather than just the, hey, let's find some volunteer, right? Like that would be a company then saying, oh, well, I want to get the publicity that having my name attached with it goes along with it. Therefore, I'll prioritize it. But we need the foundation saying this is a model that, you know, as opposed to, hey, let's just find a volunteer and the OpenJS publishes it under its moniker, right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it ends up being mutually beneficial.
Right.
Assuming it's done in a way that's not too heavy-handed.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, it sounds like there's a few things you might ask about, and we can talk about this again in one of the future meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other topics we should bring up? Well, if not, thanks for everybody's time and welcome to the new year. Great to see everybody back, and looking forward to what goes on. I guess we should start thinking a little bit about like the Collaborator Summit in Vancouver in terms of you know, next 10, what we want to organize for there and so forth. So can be one of our topics for one of the future meetings. Okay.
Sounds good.
Talk to everybody later.
Cool.
Bye.
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 Hey.